I'm going to run you through editing digital story in Premiere Pro. Okay, this applies to any video editing you're going to do, but digital stories are slightly different because they're a bit quicker. And you're most likely going to be using photos and a couple of bits of voiceover. You might be using a bit of video, but I'll kind of run you through the basics now. Okay, so first of all, open up Premiere Pro. So you should have downloaded it and installed it. If you're on a slightly older laptop and it's not letting you download the latest version, you should be able to download an earlier version, but we had issues with that earlier today. And this is different than Premiere Rush. Premiere Rush is a more stripped back version of Premiere. It's a bit more like iMovie or CapCut, but it'll be fine for your digital story if you really want to use that, or if you're using an iPad, because you can't use Premiere Pro on an iPad. Right. Click on New Project. Excuse me. You need a project name. Give it something sensible. Maybe put your name in it as well, because I know who it is. If you end up uploading them, sending them over so we can all view them next week. And something about the thing. So mine's going to be about drawing at festivals and gigs and stuff. Location, as a default, it'll save it somewhere random in a Premiere Pro folder. We don't want that, so let's choose location. I've already made a little folder here called Digital Story. I've already made folders for my audio and media. I'll show you them in a minute. And I'm just going to save it in here. So there's a few other files I've made previously, but I imagine you haven't done. Template. Feel free to try one of these templates. I wouldn't, just because I'm stuck in my ways. I like to skip import mode because that adds an extra layer of confusion. But if you want to see what it looks like, go for it. And I'm going to click create. Don't worry about the settings there. That's lots of things you don't need to worry about right now. So you end up with a little, quite big area like this. I'll go through each of these sections as we need to use them. But first of all, you need to get some footage, photos, whatever, your media, stick it in here. Either click Import Media, or you can go to File, Import, and that'll start importing media, or the shortcut is Command and I, or you can literally just go to your Finder or Explorer window if you're on Windows, go to where your files are, and drag them all in like that. Okay. Now, before I do that, it's really important when you're making video to keep things organized. Okay, I know it's a bit boring, but do make folders. Okay, so wherever you like to keep your work, I hope you make folders for each module and for each project you're working on, and you don't just randomly save them to the cloud or in your downloads folder. And if you do, it's time to start thinking about keeping it organized. Because if your video files that you're working with end up moving, or you lose the link where they are, or they end up in the cloud and you're kind of online the whole time, you're going to break your video project. Okay, and when you're working on a big project, not like this one necessarily, you're going to end up wanting to cry a lot. So keep it organized. As I said, we can import our media anyway. I'm going to just do a big old crazy click and drag here, I think. Why not? Okay, and you can keep this organized. You can import folders into here as well. It works absolutely fine. I've got a bit of music at the moment. I haven't got my voiceover because I didn't get around to doing one. But what I will do is show you how to do a voiceover on top of your video if you want to, once you've got a little video made. Which is more than one way to do that. Okay. First thing to do, a lot of people will click one of their photos and just drag it into this area. This bit is your timeline. Okay, this is your main sequence, your timeline. This is where all the magic and editing and cutting happens. If I drop a photo in here, I'll try and actually do it. Okay, it's not letting me do it now. Fine. Normally, that will create a new sequence or a timeline, but it's linked to whatever photo you're throwing in, which means it may not be the right size. So what we're going to do is make our own timeline here, and that's called a sequence. So go to File, New, Sequence. You should see something similar to this in the sequence settings, presets rather. And I've got broadcast, HD 1080p, so broadcast, we've got all those sort of things, really don't mean much. We've got HD, different versions there. Social, we've got portraits, we've got square, Ultra HD, which is 4K, which we're not going to be dealing with right now, simply because they're massive file sizes. They'll slow your computer down probably, and it's just unnecessary at the moment. But if your phone does 4K, if you've got loads of space, you've got a very fast computer, please feel free to knock yourself out and have a go at using 4K. But it's not necessary for this, and still most things online, most things on socials, they are still 1080p. And I'll explain what 1080p is now. So we're going to get up to the HD 1080p. HD stands for high definition, and 1080p is full high definition. You also get 720p, which is regular broadcast HD, which is what the BBC often sort of send out on their HD channels, and it still looks super crisp and nice compared to standard definition. 1080p is, if I click on one of these, I'm going to click on say 25 frames a second. Down here it says frame size 1920 pixels. That's horizontal, that H, not height. Okay, so that's across, 1920 pixels across by 1080 pixels high. All right, that's all you need to know. These are square pixels. That's quite important as well to know. The FPS, the end of that, is frames per second. So 25 frames a second is what most normal UK TV runs at. 29 or 30 frames a second is what old American TV used to run at. 24 frames a second is what cinema has traditionally been in, and things will just look a little bit more cinematic. Even though it's about 1 frame slower than 25 frames a second, it does make a slight difference, almost on the subconscious level. 50 frames a second will just look quite fast and quick, and it maybe you want to use 50 frames a second for a particular reason, but I'm going to keep it 25. Okay, it's easy to divide and multiply 25 by different things if you need to, and this is a quite quick thrown out sort of video. If I was making a more cinematic film with my own video, I'd probably go for 24 frames. So 25 frames a second, 1080p, let's go. This makes a thing called a sequence here. You can have multiple sequences in your project, but for now we'll probably only have one. Okay, we can rename that if we want, and that will appear in this area here. So this is where we threw all our media, and it's in the project tab. These are all different tabs. You can click on these and go to different things. It gets a bit crazy and confusing. If you ever end up lost like this, and you're like, where are all my things? Over here, there's 2 little arrows. Click on there and just go to project. And you'll come back here again. Okay. In this window, you can lay this out either as a list, like I've got here. If you click on icon, you'll see little thumbnails of all your work. Freeform view, that's just too jazz for me. So I'm going to keep it like that, or like that. I think this is actually going to be more useful for me for this project. Now, so you kind of at this point, if you haven't made, ideally should have made a little storyboard, okay, a little plan of what things are going to happen where. You've written a script, you've got an idea of what is going to happen at different points in your video. So I just had a panic that I'm not recording this. If not, I'll just cry, but hopefully it is recording. I'll check it later. What you're going to want to be able to do is kind of start planning out your video. I'm going to start off with a sort of an introduction where I sort of maybe zoom into this stage area here. That's quite fancy. I've got another. I've got this one. I quite like this. Let's drag that one in. So if I double click on this video or image, it will show up here. This is going to be more handy if you've got actual video clips to work with. I do have a video clip I was downloading. Let me just see if that's appeared yet. Downloads folder. There we go. Still downloading. We'll come back to that later. So I'm going to drag this photo in here. Okay, so I've got this. Now this is really big. It's zoomed in, and it's not because this is zoomed in. Over here, this is my kind of main project window. This is what you can see when you're exporting your video. this is what you want to be looking at while you're working on your video. And you can change the viewport so it fits at the moment, so everything fits within that little square. If you want to see how it actually looks, if it was full screen, you zoom into that, and this is quite sort of zoomed in, but you can see the quality of the video there. I would normally work at fit. That gives you an overview of what you're doing. Right, down here is my little clip I've just thrown in, and over here is a toolbar. The main tool you're going to use probably is going to be selection, or V tool. It's like the move tool. It's the main tool we're using in Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, and the shortcut is V. Okay, so if you're at a loss, you want to find it, just press V, you'll come to that. This is quite zoomed out at the moment. If you want to zoom in, see what you're working with, you can either click on this little handle on the bottom scroll bar there and zoom in, or just press plus, that's what I normally do, or minus to zoom out. That's a lot easier. And you can scroll through here. You can extend the length of your clip, especially if it's a photo. You can make it as long as you want. By going to the edge, you get that little red bracket with an arrow. Click and drag. Okay. And if you press play up here, you'll be able to see real time almost. It's a bit slower than real time, what your video looks like. So you might think, oh, that's a bit too long. Let's make it a bit shorter. And you can also press space bar, will also start and stop your video. Now, photos you've imported, if they're off your phone, or if you're off another camera, if they're offline, they're going to be bigger probably than 1080p. Okay, most video you've imported is probably going to be the right size. Photos are much bigger. They're about 3000 by 4000 pixels in size rather than 1920 by 1080. So I need to zoom out. If you click on one of these clips, say I brought in another photo over here, you click on one of these and go up to effect controls, you should see lots of little things to play with. Okay, and depending on what clip you're clicking on is what gets shown up here. And I want to shrink this down to see what I'm working with, so I'm going to go to scale. And if you don't see that, it might be hidden in these little twizzly arrows. Click on motion, I've got scale, that's 100%. I can click and zoom it out a little bit. Okay. So that's what it would actually look like. And I could just sort of do a load of photos at this size. I'll make a note of what that is. That's 47, so I could just copy and paste that and make all my other photos that sort of size as well. What I'm actually going to do though, I think, for this is I'm going to zoom around, or I might just pan actually from the bottom to the top. So above that is position, and this first number is, move that back and forth. You click and drag, that'll be the sort of the horizontal position, and this is the vertical position. So I'm going to start there, and if you see, I move this blue dot. This is called the playhead. Okay, and this scrubs through your timeline, shows you where you are at any point. And you'll see as I wiggle this around, it also wiggles this one around. And now if I click on here, this applies to just that bit of my video. It stops there at the end. If I click on here, I can't even see it. It's just at the edge there because it's on the previous clip. Does that kind of make sense? Each of these elements, and this applies also to effects, usually has a little circle and a dot on top. That's meant to be a stopwatch, and that lets you animate. So I'm going to animate this photo. I'm going to pan it down through the pace of this photo, and I think I probably only want it to be that long, so I'm going to cut it to there. And I'm going to use position. So if I click on this stopwatch, this goes blue. This shows I've got keyframes made, and that's a little diamond, and that is a keyframe. So keyframes are the main points in an animation. So if you want something to be one place in one part of the timeline, move it to another point, you just need keyframes to tell it where to go. So I'm going to scrub this over to the end of the clip. I'm going to then move the video itself, or the clip, and what will happen is it'll create the animation in between those two keyframes. like that. Okay. It's possibly a bit quick, I don't know. Oh, mate. You can always just move these keyframes around as well then if you want to change it. So it's quite flexible, it's non-linear. There's no sort of go in and out and change how you want to. So my next clip, I might just keep it like that. It's quite a nice image. I might do it about there. It's a nice composition, I think. So it's one of the tents at Green Man Festival. And I might just throw a few more photos in for now. So if you double click on this photo, you can always sort of click on the photo, just see what it looks like, and then drag it from here as well if you want to. Okay. And I might want to zoom out from a zoomed in photo. So if I click on here, go to Effect Controls, go to Scale, click on the stopwatch so I get a little keyframe, move it to the end of my clip, and I might zoom out. Oh, it's already quite sort of zoomed out already. I might want to zoom out all the way like that. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Okay. So I'm going to quickly press play, run through, see how all this is going. That seems quite nice. I'm just going to check if I've got this video. No, it's still downloading. Oh well. Videos are the same. Drag them in, and you can go to the edge, shorten them, make them longer. You can also cut in the middle of things. So here, press C, it's the razor tool. This little razor blade. You can cut things up, delete things, re-extend things. Have a little play around, see what they do. The other tools here you may not need to use at all. You will probably need to use the T tool if you want to add some text or some credits titles at some point. Okay, you can also just make that in Photoshop and then import that. Okay, Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign or Adobe Express, Canva if you must. Okay, so I'm going to throw in the main bits of my film now. They're about doing drawings. So I'm going to drag one of these in here. And that's a bit too big, isn't it? So I'm going to make sure I can see these properly. So I'm going to scale these out to about there. That's fine. And this might be quite a quick fire sort of burst of pictures, I think. So that one, do another one about the same length. Now that one's really zoomed in as well. So what I could do sometimes, if these are all the same size, and I know they are, I could click on this first one, and I can see scale is 50%. I'll copy that, so Command and C. And over here, I'll click on this clip, and I could paste 50 back in. That looks okay. It's a bit smaller, so, but yeah, you get the idea. So you could do that if you know everything is going to be uniform. Otherwise, play it by ear a little bit more. Click on it, change the size. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of these now. They kind of, you can kind of see what they do. So rotation would spin. Whoops. Let's click on where we are. Rotation would spin an image, and you can animate that, or you can just literally, you might just want something sat there instead. Okay, it might be the wrong way around. You want to change the orientation of your photo. Simple as that. And that won't animate it because I haven't made keyframes, but you could animate things and you can spin them round. You can have things, in that case, if you think about it, using position, scale and rotation, you get something spinning in from the corner and zooming in, or coming in from the front and zooming out and bouncing away. There's all sorts of little things you can play around with. Opacity might be useful for you as well. That sort of literally just makes it slightly see-through or not. That is not how you would do a fade though. I mean, in theory you could do a fade using a stopwatch and animating the opacity going out. That's not how we're going to do fading. I'll show you how to sort of fade out and fade in and transition in a bit. There's also blend modes, where if you've got a few layers on top of each other. For instance, if I was to, let me show you what it's like if I bring a photo in on top of another photo. So at the moment I've brought this photo of Joanna Newsom on top of that squiggly photo, okay, of the lines. If I change the blend modes, what will happen is that top layer, the clip I'm using, will blend into anything that's below it. So I can darken it. Oh, it pretty much disappeared. Yeah, you see it there just about. They're not going to work so well. It depends on the sort of how much darkness or lightness is in the actual image itself. Lightness will work, so I can see the clip coming through it now. Screen will do a similar sort of thing. Okay, and some of them just look awful. Some of them will be useful. Some of them will be quite handy. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then you get down the bottom here, and that's where it gets a bit more crazy. Okay, but yeah. So you probably won't need to use that, but it can be quite a nice effect, and it could be useful for some things. But not to me right now. Okay. So maybe that's all I'm going to have, and then I might have a final shot of some festival toilets at the end. There we go. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I could pan along, couldn't I? That'd be quite good. Yeah, should we do that? Let's pan that. So I'm going to start there at the beginning of the video, position, and at the end it'll pan across all the way to the end. Wonderful. That's what you want. Okay, obviously this is not my full digital story, but hopefully this has shown you enough what you need. Now, you most likely have your voiceover, so I probably should have shown you how to do bring your voiceover in first and then cut to it. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I might make a note of that at the beginning of this. But I've got a little bit of music here. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to show you, this is how you would chop a small bit out of a video as well. Okay, so I've brought my video in here. I just want the introduction of this track at the beginning of my video, and a fade out before the singing starts. Okay, so at the beginning I want this, and I'm going to press I, and that creates an in point. So that's the in point of my edit. And then it's going to go to here just before that beat starts. Now I'm going to move along different frames, basically using the arrow keys. Right, when it's before that first beat. So I just want this first section, and I'm going to press O for out point. If this was a video and I just wanted the video and there was no audio, I could just drag the video element. There's not a video though, it's just audio. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to do that. If you drag from here, you'll drag the video and the audio. What happens is video goes into the top where you've got the V layers here, V1, V2, V3. Okay, so you could drag another video layer in on top of each other. Audio, funnily enough, goes in A. Okay, that'll sit there. Okay, I'm going to fade out here. To fade out, it's really, really simple. There's a few ways, but the quickest and easiest way, and this applies to video as well, I'll show you now. So if you get it, so you've got your red sort of square bracket to the edge here, and right click, go to apply default transitions, and you'll end up having a little fade out. So listen, that's great. Now what I might do is bring all of that to there. And so I've made a little gap here now because I want this, as this finishes, I want the next bit to start. But so I'm going to click all of these and drag them in to there too. Now, one thing to note, what you might find is as a default, you should have snapping switched on. Okay, and that just means as you've got a clip, you drag it, you can kind of feel it sort of snap to the next clip, and it keeps everything very uniform and clean. And it's this little magnet here. Okay, the shortcut is S. Now, you might want to be more precise and stop the snapping, in which case you literally click that off, but it does mean you have more risk of having a tiny little gap in places and it won't work. Sometimes you'll need to turn the snapping off just to get things where you want them. Sometimes leave it on. Okay, there's no right or wrong way to do that. I'm happy with this. I'm going to fade in my video here. So, just like what I did with the audio, hover my cursor so it's a red square bracket, right click, okay, or control click if you haven't got right click enabled on your computer, apply default transition, and I'll just fade that in. Okay, and the transitions live up here in effects. Video transitions, I've also got audio transitions. And the one we're working with when you add a default, I'll add one here as well, transition, it's the dissolve usually. And here, where the blue line is, around the square, that's the default. You're probably set to cross dissolve or something, so if you want to change what the default is, just right click on this, set the default transition. You can also just drag one of these, and drag them in. That'll change, or plop it in wherever you want. And if you bring a clip into, if you drag one of these in between a clip or two photos, what will happen is they'll fade into each other, okay, which could be quite nice as well. So I'm going to actually do that for all of these. Another thing to note is when you've brought your clip in, if you feel your transition is too slow, too long, you can click, go to the edge, you get another square bracket. Look, you can make it a bit shorter, or you can make it really long and slow, okay? So just sort of throw them in and then press play and see how it feels, all right? A lot of this will come down to your feeling and your aesthetic and what you want to achieve with your video, okay? So, in theory, I would have started my audio voiceover here. I haven't made an audio voiceover right now, okay? But in theory, it would be an audio file like this. I'll click, drag it in. And you can cut it and chop it and change it and edit it the same way that we've been editing these. Now, I'm going to do a live voiceover instead, okay? So we're not, excuse me. In order to do that, we've got these little microphones here, and if I click one of these, it'll start recording. I want to record in this layer below here. I won't keep all your audio in the same layer. Bring in different audio in different layers, okay? So music should be on one, sound effects on another, voiceover in another one. Excuse me, just having a drink there. Okay, so I'm going to voiceover at this point. I'm going to do it after that. I don't know what I'm going to say at this point, so this will be very embarrassing. I'm just going to ramble for a bit just so you can see how this works, okay? So you click there, you get a little countdown. I've been going to music festivals for as long as I can remember. Well, since I was about 18, to be honest with you. That was terrible, so I'm going to cut that. I forgot how short my video was. I'm going to do this again. Okay, so if you press stop, it'll stop the whole thing. You can just delete. I'm also getting a lot of feedback here, so I don't know how that sounds in the actual video, but we'll give it a crack again anyway. So this is where I want it to start. As you saw, when I press that, it jumps back a few seconds and gives me a countdown. I like going to music festivals and gigs and drawing pictures of the bands and having a wee. There we go. It probably sounds awful because of the echo, but I'm going to see now. I like going to music festivals and gigs. It does. Basically, in order to stop that, just turn your volume down on your computer. So I'm going to try that. Okay, so it's the speaker volume that's feeding back there. So let me see if I turn that off. I can do this one more time. I like going to festivals and drawing the bands and having a wee. Stop. Now I'm going to turn the volume back up. That should sound a lot better. I like going to festivals and drawing the bands and having a wee. Great. Lovely stuff. That'll do. It's not going to win any awards. Now, what I would also recommend doing is adding a title at the beginning of your video. To do that, or an introduction or some sort of frame, as I said, you could make this in Photoshop or Canva, Adobe Express, Illustrator, InDesign, whichever. Just make sure your canvas or your size, your workspace, is 1920 by 1080p. Okay, same resolution. It'll just look nice then when you import it. It'll slot in quite happy. If you haven't got that, you can do the fast, quick, and dirty way, and you could do it with a bit of imagery in there. I'm just going to go for the basics here. There are where do they live? There are little templates for you to use in Premiere. I'm not going to go into them now. So under graphics and titles, I'm not going to drag them up there. So graphics templates, they're in window. They're all here, okay? And these are all sort of quite basic sort of things. Some of these are ones I've imported before, but you've got sort of lower third things, sort of things you see pop up when you've got people being interviewed. There's some credits at the end. You could try one of these if you like. There's also loads on Adobe Stock. There's little animated ones. Feel free to have a play, see what else you can find. Bring them in. But, excuse me, if you're crafting it yourself, it's this is how you do it. So I'm going to go to T, and I'm going to make a little text box like that, and I'm going to say drawing at festivals. Okay, and as you start typing some stuff in here, if you go to Effect Controls, first of all, you'll get a little box down here, so Effects, and it's just that is your text that you just made, and Effect Controls, under the little eye of the text, that'll show you your font. Okay, so I want a better font than that's the default font. I do not want to see anyone using a default font. I've got no. I was going to see. That's fine. It's not great, is it? Yeah, it's fine. It'll do. Okay, you can click in here. We can make this centered. We can change. If you highlight it, change the font size. We can change the color. We can give it a stroke. So if I click on that, it'll outline it. I mean, this is pretty horrible. I wouldn't recommend it. You can do all sorts of things there, look. And we can animate it as well, just like we did with the other clips, okay? What I'd probably do here is bring in 2 of these, because it means... I won't. Let's say you can make a few text layers and start, but I haven't got time for that now, so I'm just going to do this instead. And I think if I highlight this, I can resize this. There we go, that way. And I might just want to make that a bit more regular. Take the stroke off as well. And I think we can also change the line height here. Okay, you can change, you can bring in the squeeze the text in or out, all sorts of things. Right, this is not good graphic design. I'm cringing inside, but hey, that'll do. I'm going to center that there. That looks fine to me. And what I might want to do is start in black before I run into this. So I'm going to use this tool here, track selection forward tool. Basically selects everything after whatever you selected. So if you go right to the beginning, click on there, it'll select the whole load of your video. And then I'm going to go back to selection and just drag that forward a little bit. So it means I've got a bit of black here to bring this in. I'm going to do my apply default transitions by doing a little right click. I'm going to bring that in so it comes in there. And then I'm going to fade out probably just before. Actually, no, I'm going to fade out here, I reckon. So I'm going to bring that to there. Fade it out quite quickly. Or you could just snap it out as well. You don't have to always fade things out. It's quite nice having a snap or a jump cut. Okay. So another thing, if you've got your audio there and you think, oh, actually this layer is quieter than the top layer, there's a few things you can do. Zoom in. we can either see that white line there. That is essentially your volume. You can click and drag that up a little bit.
I like going to.
Oh, that's a bit boomy and horrible.
I like going to.
So I won't recommend doing that. I'm going to undo. If we go to Audio Clip Mixer, we can see these are split into different layers. And it gets to see our audio levels. So if you remember when we saw in Adobe Audition, what you want is your audio to kind of be above the green and hitting the orange, okay, yellow. What you don't want is it to go into the red. So if I just drag that up a lot.
I like going to.
Oh, that's peaking. That looks awful. So I'm going to bring that back down to about there. See what that looks like.
I like going to festivals and drawing
That's
the
absolutely
bands.
fine. It's a bit louder than the other music.
And having a wee.
Great. And what I'd probably also do is add another title here at the end. These are your credits. So thanks to. So if you've taken any photos from, oh crikey, go back to edit there. If you've taken any images from the internet or anyone's helped you do something here, it's just nice to say thanks. All right. So I expect you to be a bit more like, thank you for everyone do this. Or if I've downloaded stuff from the internet, or thank you to my granddad for letting me borrow his photos, or for chatting to me, or thank you for my cat for living. These are what you want at the end in your credits. So credits are different than titles. Credits sit at the end and you credit people who've helped you make the film. Okay, and I'm going to fade in and out with this one. Oh, that's a bit of a big one, isn't it? I'm going to fade out as well. Fade in and out. There we go. I'm going to make that a little shorter. Now, I'm very quickly going to watch my film. Check it looks all right.
I like going to festivals and drawing the bands and having a wee.
There we go. Once you're happy with your film, I'm really happy. I love it. You want to export your film. A few ways to do it. If you've got your timeline selected, you can just export this sequence. And by the way, if you ever end up making more sequences, you just need to find this, or you've lost it, you've got multiple ones, go to your project and scroll down, and you should be able to see it in here somewhere. Sequence 1. So that's my main timeline. Okay, that's like a little sort of file basically now. But to export this, old school way is go to File, Export Media, and this will take you to the same window that just clicking up here, where you've got Import, Edit, Export, just takes you here. It takes you to the same place basically. So I'm going to give it a name. Again, give it a name. This is probably, it's linked to the last thing I think I might have clicked or imported. That's not what we want. We want a proper name. So Nick Digital Story. Oh gosh, it's one of those late in the day. Location, again, that's saving it somewhere really random. I don't want it there. I want it in my folder. I know where everything is. I'm going to make another folder because I love folders. Export, so I know anything I've spat out. So I might end up making lots of versions. I'm not happy with it, I'll do another one. Might get feedback from a client or whoever, I'll make another one. So let's save it there. Preset, I would say just leave it as that. So adaptive high bitrate, that means you're going to have a lot of information. It's going to be quite good quality. Okay. Hopefully it won't be too big. But the format, this is where it's important. This is set as an MP4 because I've got this as H.264. H.264 is an encoding format. It compresses video so it looks nice online and isn't too heavy. It's not such a big file size. For this, I would recommend using that. For anything in this module, probably just use H.264. If you were exporting for broadcast and things like that, you'd probably end up using something like QuickTime, but then that's a whole other host of things to worry about. So H.264 or H.265, they're very similar. Not Blu-ray necessarily. We're not making a Blu-ray disc. H.264 or H.265. HEVEC, that's basically the newest version, but that's going to be standard. That's going to work the best for you. That's all fine. Save what I know. Yep. Click export. there we go. It's been exported successfully. And if I go to my folder, documents, filmmaking, digital story, export.
I like going to festivals and drawing the bands.
Right, for some reason it didn't work. Okay, that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. So I think it might have been... What happened there? Okay, so this is why a good reason to check what's happened here. Okay, so that's there. I've selected this. I'm going to export. Right. It might literally have been I had the wrong thing selected here. I might have been clicking in here. Okay, so it exported the last thing that's highlighted in this box. Make sure your sequence is selected. Let's try that again. Oh dear. Sorry, export. Yep. Click export. Yes, I'm going to replace that because the one there was just my bit of audio. Okay, more like it. I was running a bit quick before. So it'll take about 30 seconds and it'll export out. That, in a nutshell, is how to make your digital story, okay, in Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, if that was all too much to take in, or you can't get hold of Premiere Pro and you really don't want to use the iMac for whatever reason, but you want to use Adobe Rush on your phone or your iPad, or you want to use CapCut or iMovie, go ahead. But I've told you my reasons for trying to use Premiere Pro. They're on these machines. It's a professional level software. You've got access to it now. You won't necessarily be able to have easy access to it afterwards. Certainly if it's something you want to be getting into, if you want to be getting into marketing, if you want to be getting into PR, even video editing, journalism, you need to know how to use this software. I use CapCut and Rush. Sorry, I'm trying to record this in college, so it's a bit noisy outside. I use other software as well, like CapCut, just to get things out quickly. If I'm on a plane, I want to make a quick little video for my socials. It's or if I'm on a train, or I'm out and about, or I'm sitting on the sofa and I can't be bothered to actually do it in Premiere. Those software work fine. So feel free to use those if you really want to. I won't mind. I'd like you to try and use Premiere Pro for your final project for the mobile filmmaking module. Again, it's not the end of the world. I want to see you make good work. I want to see a good video out of this. I don't really care how you've made it, unless you've got AI to make it, in which case I'm not interested. I'm only joking. I'm just having an anti-AI rant. Right, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.